The dangerous part is not that your life can fall apart. The dangerous part is that it can look normal while it happens. Bills are getting paid, notifications keep coming, your feed is full, your calendar is busy, your mind is noisy, and from the outside nothing seems broken. But underneath that smooth digital surface, weakness is being rehearsed. Not once in a dramatic collapse. Quietly, daily, in tiny private thoughts that never get challenged. You do not wake up one morning and suddenly become passive, distracted, financially fragile, easy to impress, easy to tempt, and slow to act. That condition is built in rehearsal. Before the weak decision shows up in public, it was protected in private. It was softened, excused, delayed, dressed up as logic. By the time your actions make the damage visible, the real work has already been done inside your head. That is why some people stay stuck for years while looking completely functional. They are not missing intelligence. They are not missing access. In 2026, access is everywhere. Tools are cheap, information is instant, advice is endless. Templates are one click away. AI can draft, organize, summarize, simulate, suggest, and automate. Yet the gap between people is getting wider, not smaller. Why? Because tools do not replace internal standards. They expose them. The disciplined person uses technology to multiply clarity. The distracted person uses it to multiply avoidance. This is what the book is about. Not talent, not luck, not some dramatic identity change. It is about the daily thoughts that make a person weak long before weakness shows up in their bank account, their work, their body, their schedule, or the look in their eyes when opportunity appears. The mind does not just describe your life, it trains it. Every repeated thought is an instruction. Every inner sentence is either making you more solid or easier to break. Most people never examine that inner script because they think weakness is a personality issue. It is not. Weakness is often a pattern issue, a repetition issue, a permission issue. It is built from internal loops that sound harmless, reasonable, even comforting. Especially comforting. That is why they survive for so long. They do not sound destructive, they sound human. They sound normal. They sound like things everybody says, and that is exactly why they are dangerous. If even one of these patterns exposes you, stay with this all the way through. Do not listen like this is content. Listen like this is an audit. There is a difference. Content entertains your attention. An audit threatens your excuses. If you can feel one of these thoughts living inside you, press like on this video now. Not as a habit, but as a marker. A private admission that modern weakness often looks normal on the surface, and that you are willing to stop calling it normal. The first thought is one of the most expensive lies ever spoken silently inside a human mind. I still have time, so I can start later. That sentence has ruined more potential than failure ever did. Failure hurts once. Delay drains you for years. Delay steals in installments. It does not kick the door in. It takes one afternoon, then 1 week, then 1 quarter, then 1 year. Then suddenly you are staring at a version of your life that feels strangely familiar and strangely disappointing at the same time. The reason this thought is so powerful is that it never sounds irresponsible in the moment. It sounds patient, measured, reasonable. You tell yourself you are waiting for a better time, a calmer month, a clearer plan, a cleaner starting point. After this project, after this trip, after the next paycheck, after the market settles, after the stress drops, after the app is built, after the course is finished, after the energy comes back, after life becomes less messy. But life is not a hallway you wait in until the real game begins. Life is the thing happening while you delay the move that could have changed it. The modern world makes this lie easier to believe because everything is designed to create the illusion of future control. You can save links for later, watch later, add to cart, start a trial, build a board, pin the plan, save the template, ask AI to map the next steps, create a folder called Ideas. Open 20 tabs on investing, freelancing, content strategy, skill building, personal finance, habit systems, and productivity stacks. It feels like movement because the interface is active. But activity is not commitment. Organizing a future does not equal entering it. You see this with money all the time. A person says they will get serious next month. This month is messy. This month has birthdays, travel, stress, a repair, a bad week, a rough patch, a reward purchase, a limited offer, a subscription they forgot about, food delivery because they were tired, buy now, pay later because it felt small, another monthly platform fee because it looked useful, another creator tool, another premium app, another convenience tax. Next month will be cleaner. It rarely is, because the issue was never the month. The issue was the internal permission to postpone self-respect. People think delay is about time management. Often it is about identity protection. If I start later, I do not have to test myself now. If I delay, I can preserve the fantasy that I would do well under better conditions. Later protects the ego from measurement. Later lets you keep imagining you are capable without producing evidence. That is why delay can feel strangely comforting. It allows a person to borrow self-belief from an imaginary future version of themselves, while the present version keeps underperforming. And the damage compounds in directions people do not immediately see. Delay weakens your relationship with your own word. Every time you tell yourself you will begin and then do not, you train internal distrust. You become someone your own mind does not fully believe. That affects everything: work quality, financial consistency, follow through, confidence. Confidence is not built by hype. It is built by evidence. When your own brain keeps watching you postpone the obvious, it stops trusting your declarations. Delay also distorts money behavior. When people postpone building skill, they stay dependent on fragile income. When they postpone learning how cash actually leaves their account, invisible spending keeps eating future options. When they postpone creating systems, chaos taxes them. They pay late fees, rush fees, convenience fees, emotional fees. They stay one interruption away from panic. Then they call it bad luck. It is often delayed structure. A person who keeps saying "I still have time" usually means I'm still treating consequences like distant weather. But consequences are not distant. They are accumulating quietly. The body keeps aging. Opportunities keep rotating, markets keep moving, industries keep shifting. AI keeps changing who gets paid well for thinking and who gets replaced for repeating. If you keep delaying the development of judgment, adaptability, focus, and useful skills, the world does not pause to preserve your chance. It simply rewards the person who moved earlier. Think about how often modern people confuse information with readiness. They watch 6 videos about freelancing and still do not send one offer. They collect budgeting apps and still do not review last month's spending. They ask AI to create the perfect learning plan and never complete the first ugly week of practice. They research how to build a personal brand while continuing to hide behind private perfection. They learn just enough to feel temporarily relieved, then call that progress. It is not progress, it is sedation. The lie behind "I still have time" is that time will remain neutral until you decide to use it. It will not. Unused time does not sit quietly. It trains you, it teaches hesitation, it rewards drift, it normalizes low urgency, it turns starting into an emotional event instead of a practical one. The longer you wait, the more dramatic the start feels, and the more dramatic it feels, the easier it is to avoid. The stronger model is simple and brutal. Start before you feel like a starter. Build before life feels organized. Save before the numbers look impressive. Learn before you feel competitive. Take one clean, uncomfortable action while it is still small, because small discomfort is cheap and delayed discomfort is expensive. This stronger model changes money first at the behavioral level. Instead of waiting to become financially serious after you earn more, you become harder to fool with the money you already have. You start tracking what leaves. You notice subscription creep. You notice that tiny recurring comforts can quietly become a second utility bill. You notice that your spending rises when your mind is overloaded. You notice how often your wallet becomes a stress relief device. That awareness alone makes you stronger because it returns you to reality. Then it changes work. You stop romanticizing the perfect pivot and start practicing consistent usefulness. You send the proposal, publish the rough piece, reach out to the client, learn the tool, review the numbers, update the portfolio, tighten the process. Not because the timing feels special, but because delay is no longer allowed to wear the mask of wisdom. And then something deeper happens. Your confidence stops being imaginary. It becomes earned. Not because the outcome arrived instantly. It usually does not, but because you ended the pattern of backing away from your own intentions. The person who starts on ordinary days becomes dangerous in the best sense. Not flashy, not loud, hard to shake, because they are no longer negotiating with later. If this thought has been costing you years, leave the word now in the comments. Not as a slogan, as a line in the sand, a quiet decision that later has already taken enough from you. The next thought sounds harmless because it borrows the language of self-care while quietly training self-sabotage. I deserve this, even if I did not earn it. There is a healthy form of rest. There is a healthy form of enjoyment. There is nothing noble about becoming cold, joyless, or robotic. But that is not what this thought does. This thought does something more subtle. It detaches reward from effort, pleasure from responsibility, and consumption from reality. It tells people to soothe themselves first and measure the cost later, if ever. In modern life, this thought shows up everywhere because the infrastructure of temptation has become frictionless. One tap to order, one tap to upgrade, one tap to split the payment, one tap to subscribe, one tap to send the food, stream the show, buy the outfit, reserve the trip, unlock the premium version, join the platform, copy the aesthetic, match the lifestyle, perform the image. The entire system is built to make emotional spending feel minor and delayed consequences feel abstract. That is why so many people look financially decent from a distance and feel constantly pinched up close. Their money is not only being spent by need, it is being spent by emotion. Boredom buys, stress buys, comparison buys, frustration buys, loneliness buys, convenience buys, fatigue buys. The person says, "I deserve this." What they often mean is, "I do not want to feel this feeling without purchasing something." That sentence becomes expensive because it can justify almost anything when left unchallenged. I had a hard week. I deserve it. I am behind, so I deserve a little relief. I worked today, so I deserve a treat. I feel invisible, so I deserve to look successful. I feel uncertain, so I deserve something that makes me feel in control. I am tired, so I deserve convenience. I am discouraged, so I deserve escape. The problem is not the single purchase. The problem is the thought architecture behind it. If you repeatedly reward yourself for existing under ordinary pressure, you train a mind that expects relief without standards. That expectation bleeds into every area of life. It affects savings. It affects discipline. It affects your threshold for discomfort. It affects how long you can stay in the boring middle of building something real. This is one of the biggest differences between people who become economically stronger and people who stay fragile while looking polished. Stronger people do not ask what they deserve in the emotional moment. They ask what this action reinforces. That is a very different question. Deserve is about present feeling. Reinforce is about future identity. A lot of status spending begins right there, not with greed, with self-soothing. Someone feels behind in life, so they buy symbols that temporarily protect them from that feeling. Better phone, better clothes, better accessories, better dining spots, better visible lifestyle, better background for the photo, better digital performance of success. Meanwhile, the basics are unstable. Emergency cushion weak, skills outdated, income narrow, debt lingering, no system, no buffer. But the image is managed. This is common in the creator economy because visibility rewards surface signals. A person can look booked, thriving, in demand, connected, premium, while privately refreshing their account balance and hoping next month lands cleanly. Online performance becomes a substitute for offline solidity. Looking expensive feels easier than becoming difficult to replace, and the mind adapts quickly. Once you start using spending to regulate emotion, your standards erode without your permission. Things that once felt optional begin to feel necessary. Delivery becomes normal. Premium becomes normal. Constant treats become normal. Splitting payments becomes normal. Carrying subscriptions you barely use becomes normal. Replacing boredom with buying becomes normal. You stop asking whether the habit is aligned with your future and start asking whether you can get away with it one more time. This thought also poisons work. People who feel entitled to rewards before evidence often lose the ability to stay steady through invisible effort. They want the comfort of progress before they have produced progress. They want the lifestyle signal before the value base exists. They want to feel advanced without being tested. That mindset creates sloppy output, shallow skill, and fragile reputation. Reputation matters more than many people realize because in unstable modern income streams, trust is capital. If you freelance, create, consult, sell, teach, build, or work in any field where opportunities move through people, your reliability becomes an asset. Your standards become an asset. Your ability to deliver without drama becomes an asset. But a person trained by premature reward often keeps choosing immediate relief over long-term credibility. They miss deadlines, overpromise, underprepare, disappear under pressure, and then wonder why the serious opportunities stop coming. The lie behind "I deserve this" is that relief is harmless when you feel it strongly enough. It is not harmless if it repeatedly weakens the structure holding your future together. The stronger model is this: reward should support strength, not replace it. Rest should restore your capacity, not excuse your drift. Enjoyment should fit inside your reality, not distort it. And the most powerful reward is not the purchase. It is the increase in self-respect that comes from knowing you did not fold just because you felt something intensely. That mindset changes financial behavior in very practical ways. You stop calling every emotional urge a need. You separate maintenance from indulgence. You notice that fear-based saving is not enough if your spending is still emotional and unexamined. You build deliberate room for pleasure instead of letting pleasure leak through every crack in the month. You stop using future income to justify present weakness. You stop treating debt as a mood management tool. You stop being impressed by your own excuses. It also changes confidence. You start to feel cleaner internally, less split, less performative, because you are no longer saying one thing about the future while funding the opposite with daily habits. The person who can feel an urge, question it, and act from alignment instead of impulse is quietly becoming powerful. You do not need to live small. You need to stop letting emotion wear the mask of entitlement. There is a huge difference. And there is something else people rarely say out loud. Financial self-respect is not just about restraint. It is about refusing to insult your future by making your present feelings the center of every decision. A lot of people are one hard season away from panic because they kept rewarding themselves like stability was guaranteed. It is not. Jobs shift, clients vanish, algorithms change, industries move, health interrupts, family needs appear, rent rises, tools change, demand changes. The person with financial self-respect does not live in fear. They live prepared. They understand that every unnecessary leak in the system makes future pressure heavier. If this part hit harder than expected, press like on the video. Not for me. For the reminder that private discipline matters long before public success ever becomes visible. Then comes a thought that sounds cautious but quietly keeps people trapped in permanent hesitation. I need to feel ready before I move. This one destroys careers, businesses, creative work, financial decisions, and personal growth because it puts emotion in charge of action sequencing. It says movement should begin after certainty arrives. But certainty almost never arrives first. Clarity is usually the result of contact, not the precondition for it. People wait to feel ready to apply, ready to publish, ready to charge, ready to ask, ready to learn in public, ready to shift careers, ready to launch, ready to speak clearly, ready to invest in their skill set, ready to have difficult money conversations, ready to stop hiding. What they are really waiting for is a guarantee that the action will not threaten their self-image. Modern life feeds this thought in 1,000 polished ways. There is always another tutorial, another framework, another expert thread, Another tool, another checklist, another second brain template, another optimization system, another AI prompt pack, another productivity method, another course promising to prepare you perfectly. Preparation has become one of the most socially acceptable forms of procrastination because it looks responsible from the outside. You can spend months building a setup that makes you feel like the kind of person who is about to do serious work, while never entering the part where the work can reject you. This is especially visible with AI in 2026. One person uses it to accelerate execution. Another uses it to simulate execution. They generate plans, names, outlines, brand angles, learning paths, market analysis, content calendars, pitch drafts, and business ideas, but never bring anything into contact with risk. Nothing gets tested, nothing gets shipped, nothing gets measured by reality. Their readiness keeps expanding while their actual movement stays flat. And readiness is a moving target when fear controls the definition. You say you will move when you know enough. Then enough becomes more. Then more becomes perfect. Then perfect becomes impossible. The mind keeps raising the price of action because action would finally expose the difference between self-concept and skill level. The hidden damage of this thought is not only missed opportunity, it is self-fragmentation. You start seeing yourself as someone with serious intentions but weak follow-through. You become mentally crowded with unfinished beginnings. There is the business you almost started, the content you almost published, the certification you almost completed, the portfolio you almost organized, the offer you almost sent, the budget you almost built, the skill you almost took seriously. Your mind becomes a museum of almost. That condition quietly destroys confidence. Again, confidence is not built by telling yourself you are capable. It is built by entering uncertain spaces and surviving your own imperfection long enough to improve. Readiness is often discovered through repetition after the start, not before it. This matters for money because economic adaptability depends on your ability to move while conditions are unclear. Stable old paths are weaker than they look. Roles change faster, tools change faster, hiring changes faster, market demand changes faster. If you need emotional certainty before adapting, you will always be late. And late adaptation is expensive. Think about the people who keep waiting for a calm market before learning a valuable skill, or a stable economy before building a side income stream, or full confidence before negotiating their rate, or perfect positioning before offering services, or a final polished identity before becoming visible. By the time they feel ready, someone else with less polish but more courage has already built reps, trust, data, and momentum. The lie behind "I need to feel ready" is that feeling prepared predicts performance. Often, it predicts nothing. Some of the most effective moves begin in awkwardness, with incomplete knowledge, with a voice that shakes a little, with an offer that still needs refinement, with a system that is not elegant yet, with a budget that starts messy, with a piece of work that is decent, not dazzling. Motion creates feedback. Feedback creates adjustment. Adjustment creates competence. Competence creates grounded confidence. That is the order. The stronger model is this: move while uncertain, but stay honest. Do not pretend to know what you do not know. Do not fake mastery. Do not gamble recklessly. But stop demanding emotional comfort before practical action. Use caution in the decision, not paralysis in the identity. This changes work immediately. You become more useful because you stop obsessing over how you appear at the starting line and start caring about how fast you learn once contact begins. Employers, clients, collaborators, and audiences do not need your perfect self-concept. They need useful output. Useful output improves under pressure, not under endless private polishing. It also changes money behavior in a less obvious way. People who keep waiting to feel ready often stay financially overdependent on old systems because new income paths require temporary awkwardness. Selling a service feels exposing. Learning a difficult tool feels humbling. Negotiating feels uncomfortable. Building a reputation from zero feels slow. So they stay in weak dependence longer than necessary. They call it patience. Sometimes it is avoidance, wearing neat clothes. The ability to act before you feel ready is not recklessness. It is a form of self-trust. It says, I do not need guaranteed comfort to begin the process of becoming stronger. I can survive being seen learning. I can survive not having the whole map. I can survive the first ugly draft of change. And that applies outside of work. You do not wait to feel ready to get honest about your spending. You do not wait to feel ready to admit that your screen habits are damaging your focus. You do not wait to feel ready to ask whether your friendships, routines, and environment are strengthening you or softening you. You move toward reality first. Emotional adjustment catches up later. If you want more videos that break down the hidden mental patterns behind money behavior, discipline, and self-respect, subscribe here. Not because more content will save you, it will not, but because repeated clean ideas can help you notice the lies faster when they show up in your own mind. Then there is the thought that many people carry without saying it directly, because saying it directly would sound too painful. People like me do not usually win big. This thought is poison because it disguises surrender as realism. It does not always sound dramatic. Often it sounds casual. People from my background do not really get there. People with my personality do not thrive in those spaces. People who start this late do not catch up. People from my town, my family, my situation, my network, my age bracket, my education level, my appearance, my industry, my history, my mistakes, my current salary, my current debt, my current limitations, do not usually build something major. This thought may be rooted in real hardship, real patterns, real disadvantage, real evidence. That is what makes it emotionally convincing. Some people absolutely begin from harder ground. Some carry less protection, less guidance, less financial room, less cultural confidence, less social capital. Pretending otherwise is dishonest. But turning difficult odds into a permanent identity is even more dangerous. Because once a person internalizes that people like me do not usually win big, they stop relating to opportunity as something to build toward. They relate to it as something to observe from a distance. Then the damage spreads. They underprice themselves before the conversation starts. They play small in rooms they have earned the right to enter. They avoid developing premium skills because part of them assumes those skills are for another kind of person. They remain loyal to familiar limitations because unfamiliar possibility feels socially disloyal. They begin editing their own ambition to stay emotionally compatible with the version of life that shaped them. The modern algorithm economy makes this worse. Every day, people consume polished evidence of other people's results, other people's growth, other people's money, other people's confidence, other people's network, other people's audience, other people's homes, bodies, vacations, gear, wins, visibility, and speed. Instead of using that exposure as information, many use it as proof that the game belongs to a different species of human. They scroll, compare, shrink, and slowly accept the role of spectator. Comparison is not only painful because it makes you feel behind. It is dangerous because it can train you to believe that capability is distributed by type instead of built by standards, reps, and decisions. Now, does everyone win equally? Of course not. Life is not balanced that way. But the thought people like me do not usually win big does something even before results are tested. It narrows effort. It lowers self-demand. It reduces experimentation. It weakens resilience after setbacks. The person stops asking what is required and starts asking whether someone like them is even allowed to try without looking foolish. This matters financially because income often rises with value, reliability, communication, and strategic visibility. But people who carry this thought often sabotage all four. They hesitate to position themselves. They resist charging appropriately. They avoid rooms where higher standards would upgrade them. They cling to communities that normalize under-earning. They make peace with fragility because bold adjustment feels like a betrayal of their identity. And there is a darker side. Some people preserve belonging by staying limited. They may not say that aloud, but it is real. If everyone around you normalizes financial chaos, passivity, or excuse culture, becoming disciplined can feel emotionally disruptive. You might fear becoming hard to relate to. You might fear criticism. You might fear being called arrogant for taking yourself seriously. So the mind creates a quieter sentence. People like me do not usually win big. It sounds objective. It protects the old social contract. The lie behind it is not that obstacles are fake. The lie is that your category should decide your ceiling. It should not. Your current category may explain some friction. It does not have the right to become your private prophecy. The stronger model is this. I do not need to resemble the people who usually win in order to build a life that is difficult to break. I need standards, skill, repetition, and the willingness to tolerate being unfamiliar in my own growth. That change is huge. It moves you from identity-based helplessness to process-based agency. You stop asking whether you fit the stereotype of success and start asking whether your habits are expensive or useful. Are you learning? Are you stacking skills? Are you becoming easier to trust? Are you improving your judgment? Are you building focus in a distracted era? Are you turning attention into output? Are you letting insecurity control your pricing, your communication, your visibility, your discipline? When you think this way, money changes from being a symbol of personal worth to a scoreboard of repeated usefulness and repeated choices. Not perfectly, not purely, but enough to become practical. You stop romanticizing overnight transformation. You stop needing the identity of a winner. You start building the behavior of one. And this is where self-respect becomes more important than self-image. Self-image wants to feel special. Self-respect wants to become reliable. Self-image wants validation from the room. Self-respect is willing to outgrow the room. Self-image is hurt by starting below elite level. Self-respect understands that elite level is built from surviving many ordinary days without backing away. There are people right now with less natural confidence than you, less polish than you, less charisma than you, less comfort than you, making stronger moves simply because they are not using identity as an excuse to stay still. They are not asking whether people like them usually win big. They are asking what the next serious rep looks like. If this exposed something uncomfortable, comment the word standard. That word matters because most limits become softer when your standards become harder. Then we reach a thought that sounds practical, adult, almost mature. I will focus seriously once life becomes calmer. This thought keeps millions trapped in permanent postponement because it assumes focus is a reward you receive after chaos disappears. But chaos is not going away. Not in modern life. Not for long. There will always be another message, update, deadline, surprise expense, family issue, platform shift, health wobble, political distraction, global noise cycle, algorithm change, social pull, app update, tool trend, or emotional wobble trying to enter your nervous system. If you are waiting for a silent season to become disciplined, you are waiting for a fantasy environment. This thought is especially common now because people are cognitively flooded. Their phones wake up before they do. Their attention is fragmented before breakfast. Their brain is carrying open loops from group chats, inboxes, payment reminders, content feeds, news fragments, trending panic, career uncertainty, and low-level comparison before the day has even started. Then they say they cannot focus because life is hectic. Of course it is. The question is not whether life is hectic. The question is whether you are building a mind that can hold shape inside it. People often imagine focused people as people with easier lives. That is usually false. Focused people are often people who stop treating every input like a command. This matters economically because attention has become a form of currency. The ability to hold concentration long enough to learn difficult things, produce useful work, think clearly, make fewer emotional decisions, and build reputation is now a major advantage. Not a soft advantage. An economic one. In a world where distraction is industrialized, focus is rare enough to become marketable. But weak minds keep waiting for calm. Once the kids are older, once work settles, once the market stabilizes, once the stress drops, once there are fewer fires, once the mind feels less scattered, once motivation returns, The problem is that weak focus usually creates more chaos, not less. Unfinished work creates pressure. Avoided tasks create noise. Disorganized money creates background stress. Poor sleep from screen overload weakens morning judgment. Constant digital switching reduces depth. The person is not simply surrounded by chaos, they are feeding it. Look at how many people confuse being busy with being serious. Their day is full, but it has no center. They answer messages quickly, skim information endlessly, switch tasks constantly, consume productivity content, reorganize systems, refresh dashboards, tweak templates, label folders, automate tiny things, and still avoid the one demanding action that would actually upgrade their life. They look productive while remaining mentally weak. This is one of the sharpest tricks of the modern world. It offers infinite low-impact activity that feels responsible. You can spend all day around your priorities without touching them. You can manage the appearance of seriousness while staying allergic to depth. And depth is where economic value increasingly lives. AI can do a lot of light work fast. That means shallow output is becoming cheaper. What stays valuable is clear judgment, sustained attention, original synthesis, taste, trust, communication, execution under uncertainty, and the discipline to keep refining. None of that grows well inside a mind trained to chase stimulation every 3 minutes. The hidden damage of "I will focus seriously once life becomes calmer" is that it teaches dependence on conditions. It says your standards should wait for your environment to cooperate. That is weakness. Because environments do not care about your standards, you have to carry them in. This does not mean becoming rigid or cruel with yourself. It means becoming deliberate. Instead of hoping for calm, you build islands of non-negotiable focus inside a noisy life. An hour without the feed. A morning without instant input. A rule about where your phone lives when you work. A spending review before impulse clicks. A weekly reset. A protected deep work block. A hard boundary around the first and last 30 minutes of the day. Clean constraints. Not dramatic. Effective. That shift changes money too. A distracted mind leaks money because it buys convenience, forgets renewals, reacts emotionally, misses details, and avoids financial review. A focused mind sees patterns sooner. It notices waste. It notices when income depends on too few sources. It notices when screen time is replacing skill time. It notices when a side hustle is actually just a hobby with expenses. It notices when looking active is replacing becoming valuable. And here is a painful truth. Many people say they want financial stability while protecting the habits that destroy focus. Endless scrolling, constant comparison, sleep erosion, notification dependence, shallow multitasking, permanent accessibility. If your attention belongs to everyone else first, your future will always be underfunded. The lie behind this thought is that calm creates focus. Sometimes the opposite is truer. Focus creates a kind of calm because it reduces self-inflicted chaos. The stronger model is this. I do not wait for life to quiet down. I build stronger attention in the middle of noise. That is one of the most practical forms of modern power. With this mindset, you stop asking whether the day feels ideal and start asking what deserves protected attention anyway. You stop negotiating with your phone like it is neutral. It is not neutral. Entire industries are competing to fragment you because fragmented people are easy to monetize. You become more careful with your eyes because your eyes are feeding your mind. You become more careful with your mind because your mind is driving your money, your work, your decisions, and your standards. And then you realize something uncomfortable. A lot of people are not exhausted because life is impossible. They are exhausted because they keep giving their nervous system to cheap inputs and then expecting premium output. That realization can change everything. Because once you see attention as an asset, not just a feeling, you stop spending it like loose change. If this part feels like your daily reality, save this video and come back to it after your next doom-scrolling spiral. Not for guilt, for recognition. Sometimes seeing the trap clearly is the first act of climbing out. Then we come to one of the most modern and socially rewarded thoughts of all. Looking successful matters more than becoming valuable. This thought is the quiet religion of fragile ambition. It tells people that the appearance of progress can stand in for progress, that if you look sharp enough, speak polished enough, brand yourself well enough, position yourself visibly enough, people will assume value, and that assumption will be enough to carry you. For a while, sometimes it is. That is what makes the trap seductive. The internet is full of people performing competence, performing wealth, performing discipline, performing demand, performing certainty. Backgrounds are curated, bios are sharpened, language is optimized, photos are filtered, wins are framed, losses are hidden, metrics are selected, lifestyle signals are arranged. The audience sees confidence. The person behind the account may be financially thin, emotionally chaotic, underskilled, or dependent on momentum they do not know how to sustain. Visibility is not useless. Branding is not fake by default. Presentation matters. Communication matters. But when looking successful becomes more important than becoming valuable, your incentives get corrupted. You begin choosing what photographs well over what compounds well. That can show up in small ways. Buying gear before building skill. Spending on aesthetics before fixing process. Posting about goals instead of doing the private reps. Taking courses that feel advanced instead of mastering basics that look boring. Choosing strategies that sound impressive in conversation but do not fit your actual stage. Copying the visual style of successful people while ignoring the standards that made them effective. It can also show up financially in brutal ways. Someone earns a little more and instantly upgrades the image. Better car lease, better apartment than they can comfortably carry, better visible lifestyle, better social proof, better expensive habits. They want their life to announce success before success is stable enough to hold its own weight. One income wobble later, the pressure becomes real, but the image has already become emotionally addictive. This is how financial fragility often dresses itself in expensive fabric. The person is not building assets. They are funding a public impression. They are not becoming free. They are becoming harder to maintain. And the cost is deeper than money. When you care more about looking successful than becoming valuable, you avoid the kinds of work that build real substance, because real substance often begins in hidden, unimpressive repetition. Research, practice, refinement, silence, error correction, boring consistency. You may still work hard, but part of your effort is being spent on impression management instead of skill expansion. This matters more in 2026 because AI and automation are lowering the value of surface-level performance. Generic polish is easier to generate. Generic marketing language is easier to generate. Generic confidence is easier to fake, which means actual value stands out more clearly over time. Can you solve real problems? Can you think cleanly? Can you create trust? Can you deliver under pressure? Can you communicate with precision? Can you keep learning without turning every new tool into a distraction carnival? The hidden damage of this thought is that it makes a person dependent on external mirrors. Likes, comments, reactions, attention, praise, signals. They start feeling real only when seen. That is psychologically expensive because visibility is unstable. Algorithms change, audiences shift, relevance fades, trends move. If your identity depends on looking successful, you will make terrible decisions to preserve that appearance. You may avoid honest conversations about debt because it breaks the image. You may keep low-value subscriptions because they support the aesthetic of being serious. You may spend money to maintain access to rooms that make you feel important instead of rooms that make you more capable. You may resist beginner-level work because it looks unimpressive. You may overcomplicate your language because clarity feels too plain. You may confuse networking with proximity, posting with progress, personal branding with personal substance. The lie behind looking successful matters more than becoming valuable is that perception creates lasting security. Perception can open a door. It cannot replace the foundation needed to stay inside the room when demands increase. The stronger model is this: private value before public image, useful before impressive, durable before visible. Let your life get heavier with substance before it gets louder with signals. That changes money in a way many people underestimate. You stop buying things mainly to communicate identity. You become harder to manipulate with status. You care less about whether the purchase makes you look advanced and more about whether it strengthens your actual position. Does it improve health, clarity, mobility, output, stability, learning, or recovery? Or is it mostly theater? You also become more strategic with reputation. Real reputation is not built by appearing expensive. It is built by repeated proof that you bring value with low drama and high consistency. In many modern industries, that reputation compounds harder than temporary visibility ever will. And there is freedom in this. Once you stop trying to look like a person who is ahead, you can spend your energy becoming a person who is difficult to ignore for the right reasons. Depth, reliability, precision, calm, competence, integrity, taste, adaptability. These age well. These survive market shifts. If you have ever felt pressure to perform success online while feeling financially vulnerable offline, this part is for you. You are not behind because you are not flashing enough. You may be behind because you are spending attention and money on signals that do not strengthen your actual life. That can change fast once you see it clearly. And finally, there is the last thought. Maybe the most dangerous of all because it gives away agency while keeping hope alive just enough to stop you from rebuilding. Something outside me will eventually save me. This thought has many disguises. Maybe the right person will notice me. Maybe one lucky break will change everything. Maybe a new app, trend, platform, boss, market cycle, relationship, government change, viral post, investment story, or sudden opportunity will rescue my situation. Maybe the next year will somehow be different without me becoming different in the ways that matter. Hope is not the problem. Blind dependence is. There is nothing wrong with good fortune when it arrives. Unexpected help matters, timing matters, support matters, opportunity matters. No one builds entirely alone. But people become weak when they start relating to rescue as a strategy. When rescue becomes the silent plan, discipline softens. Adaptation slows. Standards drop. Money leaks continue. Skill development becomes optional. The person keeps themselves emotionally afloat with fantasy scenarios instead of upgrading the mechanisms that would make them more ready when opportunity appears. This is common in unstable income cultures. A person hates their financial position but keeps waiting for a bigger paycheck instead of building better behavior with current money. Another person wants a business but waits for the perfect idea instead of learning how to sell, communicate, test, and iterate. Another wants career growth but keeps hoping someone will recognize their hidden potential while their visible output stays average. Another person wants peace but keeps looking for external changes while protecting the mental habits that create internal chaos. The digital world intensifies this because it constantly shows breakthrough stories stripped of repetition. Overnight growth, sudden visibility, one launch, one deal, one viral moment, one client, one pivot, one episode, one thread, one product, one post. It makes rescue look common and process look optional. But even when external opportunities do change a life, they usually land best on people who are already becoming ready through discipline. Luck can open a gate. It cannot carry someone who refuses to walk. The hidden damage of the rescue mindset is that it teaches passivity disguised as optimism. The person is not fully hopeless, so they do not feel the urgency to rebuild. They are just hopeful enough to keep postponing responsibility. They think something will click, something will happen, someone will appear. The future becomes a vague charity project they expect life to fund. This thought ruins financial development because it prevents ownership. Ownership does not mean blame for everything. It means responsibility for your response, your preparation, your behavior, your standards, your adaptation, your decisions. Without ownership, there is no correction loop. Without correction, the same weaknesses keep costing you under new names. The lie behind something outside me will eventually save me is that waiting preserves possibility. In reality, waiting usually erodes capability. The stronger model is this. No one is coming to carry the weight I keep avoiding. Help may come. Opportunity may come. Timing may improve. But rescue is not my plan. My plan is to become sturdier, clearer, more useful, more disciplined, and more prepared before anyone notices, before conditions improve, before certainty appears. That mindset changes everything because it reconnects hope to action. You stop fantasizing about transformation and start rehearsing it. You build the emergency buffer slowly. You tighten leaks. You improve your communication. You increase your reliability. You stack skills that make you more adaptive. You learn how your money behaves under your emotions. You reduce dependence on luck by becoming someone who can respond better when life shifts. And there is power in that which no fantasy can match. Real power is not the belief that life will treat you gently. It is the evidence that you can meet life with stronger habits, stronger thinking, stronger boundaries, and stronger execution than before. When you live this way, even your hope changes shape. It becomes cleaner, less desperate, less childish, less dependent on a miracle. More like confidence in your ability to keep building under imperfect conditions. This is where the 7 thoughts connect. I still have time teaches delay. I deserve this teaches emotional entitlement. I need to feel ready teaches hesitation. People like me do not usually win big teaches identity surrender. I will focus seriously once life becomes calmer teaches dependence on conditions. Looking successful matters more than becoming valuable teaches surface over substance. Something outside me will eventually save me teaches rescue instead of responsibility. Different words, same result. A weaker life built from repeated internal permission. And here is what makes them so dangerous. None of them sound evil. None of them sound obviously destructive. Some even sound compassionate. That is why people carry them for years. They protect comfort in the present while draining force from the future. You can hear all 7 in ordinary modern behavior. The person who spends 2 hours refining a personal brand but avoids the hard skill that would make the brand credible. The person who says they are researching side hustles while staying trapped in endless tutorials. The person who orders relief every time stress rises and calls it balance. The person who performs success online while hiding financial fragility offline. The person who says they need a calmer season while feeding the exact habits that keep the mind chaotic. The person who waits for better timing while time is already training them into passivity. The person who is still secretly hoping for rescue because responsibility feels too confronting. This is not an attack. It is an exposure. And exposure can be a gift when it is honest enough, because weakness is not destiny. It is rehearsal. That should scare you for one reason and encourage you for another. If weakness is rehearsal, it means strength is rehearsal too. Financial self-respect is rehearsal. Focus is rehearsal. Calm under pressure is rehearsal. Better standards are rehearsal. Sharper judgment is rehearsal. Useful work is rehearsal. Clean action in the middle of uncertainty is rehearsal. You do not become strong by making one grand declaration. You become stronger by refusing certain thoughts' repeated access to your mind. That is what people who always seem to win often understand. Even if they do not explain it this way, they are not always louder, not always more gifted, not always born into ideal conditions. But their inner script does not keep feeding the same sabotage loops. When stress hits, they do not immediately reach for excuses. When discomfort appears, they do not immediately negotiate with it. When money arrives, they do not automatically spend for emotional relief or social image. When life gets noisy, they protect pockets of attention. When uncertainty appears, they move carefully instead of freezing dramatically. That is not magic. It is trained mental architecture. So what replaces the 7 weak thoughts? Instead of I still have time, the stronger thought is this action gets more expensive the longer I delay it. Instead of I deserve this, it becomes I do not reward a pattern that makes me easier to break. Instead of I need to feel ready, it becomes clarity grows when I move honestly. Instead of people like me do not usually win big, it becomes my standards matter more than my category. Instead of I will focus seriously once life becomes calmer, it becomes I build focus inside the life I actually have. Instead of looking successful matters more than becoming valuable, it becomes substance first, signals later. Instead of something outside me will eventually save me, It becomes I prepare before rescue has a chance to seduce me. Notice what these stronger thoughts do. They pull you back into contact with reality. They do not flatter you. They do not hype you. They do not offer instant relief. They ask more from you. That is why they work. A weak script always tries to make you feel better before it makes you better. A strong script is often the opposite. It may sting at first because it removes the soft padding around your habits. But then it gives you something far more valuable than comfort. It gives you direction you can trust. This is especially important now because modern life is full of systems that profit from weak internal scripts. If you delay, you keep consuming. If you spend emotionally, you keep buying. If you stay distracted, you keep scrolling. If you perform success, you keep posting. If you wait for rescue, you stay passive. If you depend on conditions, you stay controllable. Weakness is monetized everywhere. That means defending your mind is not abstract self-help. It is practical resistance. And that resistance is not glamorous. It might look like deleting an app that keeps making your mind soft. Canceling a subscription you kept out of identity, not use. Reviewing your statements without flinching. Taking a hard skill seriously instead of flirting with 10 easy ones. Telling the truth about your screen addiction. Saying no to status purchases that do nothing for your actual position. Doing the boring work before broadcasting ambition. Turning AI into a tool for leverage instead of a hiding place for indecision. Protecting your attention like a scarce asset because it is one. Those moves do not get applause right away, but they change the structure underneath your life. And structure matters more than intensity. A lot more. Intensity can be emotional. Structure is what remains after the emotion leaves. That is why so many people keep restarting. They rely on intensity. A new year, a hard week, a scare, a burst of motivation, a good video, a painful bill, a moment of comparison, a short window of embarrassment. For a few days they feel charged. Then they slide because the inner script was never rewritten. The weak thoughts were still there, waiting to reclaim the wheel the moment emotional heat dropped. This is why the real work is repetition, not of hype, of truth. Short, hard, accurate truth repeated until it becomes more familiar than the lies. When you want to delay, you need a sentence stronger than the urge. When you want to spend for relief, you need a sentence stronger than the feeling. When you want to hide behind readiness, you need a sentence stronger than the fear. When identity tells you to stay small, you need a sentence stronger than the old story. When distraction offers noise, you need a sentence stronger than the feed. When appearance seduces you, you need a sentence stronger than the image. When rescue whispers, you need a sentence stronger than fantasy. That is what an internal script really is. Not positive thinking. Operational thinking, thought patterns that hold shape when comfort, pressure, comparison, temptation, and uncertainty all arrive at once. And they will arrive at once. That is normal now. The person who waits for a simple life before becoming strong will wait too long. If this video made you feel seen in a way that is a little uncomfortable, that is a good sign. Comfort rarely exposes sabotage. Truth does. Here is a practical way to know whether one of these 7 thoughts is controlling you. Look at what keeps repeating despite your stated intentions. Your repeated behavior is often your real belief system made visible. If you keep saying money matters but spend for emotion, the thought I deserve this may be in charge. If you keep saying you will start soon but months disappear, I still have time may be in charge. If you keep preparing without exposure, I need to feel ready may be in charge. If you keep shrinking around bigger opportunities, people like me do not usually win big may be in charge. If you keep losing your mind to noise and calling it a busy season, I will focus when life is calmer may be in charge. If you keep curating the image while neglecting the skill, looking successful matters more than becoming valuable may be in charge. If you keep hoping for an outside shift without deepening your own standards, something outside me will eventually save me may be in charge. Once you see which thought is running your loop, the next step is not shame. It is interruption. Catch the sentence early. Challenge it in plain language. Replace it with a stronger one. Act before the old script regains control. Do that enough times, and something changes that no one can hand you. Your internal atmosphere becomes less negotiable. You stop sounding like a victim inside your own head. You stop sounding like a customer of your own impulses. You stop sounding like a spectator in your own future. And this is the part most people underestimate. Strong thinking does not only improve outcomes, it improves posture, presence, voice, decision speed, stress tolerance, financial honesty. Even the way you walk into rooms changes when your inner script stops constantly softening your standards. Because the mind hears everything you repeatedly say inside it. If your internal language keeps making you smaller, later, softer, more entitled, more passive, more dependent, do not act surprised when your life starts reflecting the tone of that conversation. Results are often visible thoughts with a time delay. That should make you very careful about what you normalize privately. You do not need to become someone else overnight. That is another trap. Dramatic reinvention often flatters the ego and disappears by next week. What matters is cleaner repetition, smaller lies rejected faster, better thoughts practiced under ordinary pressure, better financial behavior when no one is watching, better focus in moments that used to dissolve into scrolling, better restraint when image calls louder than substance, better action before certainty feels complete. This is how a person becomes harder to break, not by pretending life is easy, not by waiting for perfect conditions, not by collecting better language and doing nothing with it, not by buying symbols of seriousness, not by hoping that visibility, luck, or rescue will carry what discipline refused to build, by rehearsing stronger truths until they become default behavior. So listen carefully to your own mind after this ends. That is where the real video continues. In the 10 seconds before you open another app, in the moment you want to delay the task again, in the click before the emotional purchase, in the excuse before the skipped rep, in the urge to perform success instead of earn substance, in the fantasy that the future will become clean without the present becoming honest. That is where your life is actually being written. If you want to follow up on mental toughness and money discipline, comment the word unlearn. Because that is what much of this work really is. Not becoming a superhero. Unlearning the thoughts that kept training you to stay weak while calling it normal. And remember the title of this book carefully. 7 Thoughts That Make You Weak. Not 7 events. Not 7 enemies. Not 7 people. Thoughts. Repeated inner lines. Private permissions. Silent rehearsals. That is where the collapse starts. And that is where the rebuild starts too. Before money strengthens, thought has to strengthen. Before discipline becomes visible, it has to become internal. Before confidence looks real in public, it has to stop being fake in private. Before your life becomes harder to shake, your inner script has to stop feeding everything that keeps you easy to control. There is no dramatic soundtrack in that truth. No cinematic rescue, no guaranteed applause. Just a cleaner standard. And maybe that is exactly why it works. Because the strongest people are not always the ones making the loudest declarations. Often they are the ones who stopped letting weak thoughts rent permanent space in their mind. They became careful about what they repeat. Careful about what they excuse. Careful about what they reward. Careful about what they consume. Careful about what they fund with attention, money, and time. That care becomes structure. That structure becomes behavior. That behavior becomes reputation. That reputation becomes options. Those options become freedom. Not instant freedom. Earned freedom. The kind built quietly enough that most people do not notice until the gap becomes impossible to ignore. And if you take anything from this, let it be this. Your future is listening to the way you speak to yourself now. Your bank account is listening. Your work is listening. Your discipline is listening. Your confidence is listening. Your standards are listening. So stop rehearsing weakness like it is harmless background noise. The thoughts you repeat every day are not background. They are instructions. Choose them like your life is taking notes.